Hello, Tracy here with another scrapbooking process video. This time I'm going to be scrapbooking these two photos. It looks like there's three, but two are the same. The one that I'm cutting right now is a photo that I took about a year ago. It was actually, I think it was 55 weeks ago, according to Instagram, that I created that photo. And it was a photo of my daughter back when I used to have to convince her to go to soccer and she wasn't feeling so good about going. And then the one in the yellow jersey, which is this year's photo that I just took last week, this one right here, is a photo of her now, and she loves soccer now. And one of the things I like to do in a then and now layout is make the then photo as similar as possible to the now photo so that I can compare and contrast in the layout itself. It just kind of emphasizes this is the same place, the same soccer league, the same coach, a lot of the same kids, and the same location. You can see the banners in the back here, and you can see the banners in the back here. And the only difference is that Sophie has changed. So I took the photo from a similar place. I decided to do this photo. I had no idea she was going to score. I just knew that she was running towards the net, and I knew about this photo because it stands out to me. It's something I've scrapbooked, and I love this photo, and so I thought, I'm going to snap a shot. So I didn't get in quite close enough before I took the photo, and also because of that, my camera focused on the lines in the net, on the string on the net, instead of on her. So you'll see that she's actually out of focus and it's the net that is in focus in this, but you can certainly see the happy on her face, and her hands are in the air. She's confident. She actually did score just as I snapped this shot. It was like the best shot ever. I was so excited to catch it. The only thing that could have been better is if I was out a little bit further, I would have been able to see that the ball is in the net, but we all know it was in the net. And this one here, she looks quite apprehensive and, shy and kind of standing away from the other kids a little bit. And it just kind of emphasizes. So the contrast that I want to make. So one of the things that I wanted to do here, I was trying to decide between having the then be in black and white, which emphasizes the positivity of her change, like from darkness to light or from plain to color, something like that. But then I really like the color in this one. I like the color of the jersey and that sort of thing. But this one was the saturation was too high in this one compared to this. This is from Instagram, and this is just from my camera roll. And you can see that the background is just a little bit darker, and she's darker, and it's a little bit, I don't know, it just looks too different. So I changed the levels a little bit just to make it look a little bit more washed out like this one looks. So I think these are more similar. I still haven't entirely decided if I'm going to do the contrast between the black and white and the color, or if I'm going to go with the red. But if I go with the red, I'm going to go with this red, not this red photo, this color photo, not this color photo. So I'm going to right away, also this one printed up at a better quality. There's lines through the netting in this one. Anyhow, I'm going to put this right in my kids' scrapbooking supplies because I just throw any extra photos that I printed wrong or printed too much of. I just throw them in a basket for them, and they use it when they scrapbook. They don't scrapbook all that often, but I like to have some photos for them when they do. And so it's either going to be this and this or this and this. If I decide to go black and white, I'm probably going to reprint this with lower contrast. The darks are just too dark here. Again, it just kind of, I want this photo to be kind of like the brighter, more eye-catching photo than this, and I think with the contrast this high, this one just is taking away a little bit. So that's my thought. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start trimming up this photo, this reprinted colored photo with the red jersey from last year. And I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to end up not using it at all, because here I am thinking, I think I actually like the black and white instead. It's less busy, and it's kind of, it shows the message of what I want to show in a more efficient kind of a way, without too much detail in the photos. Anyways, I just like the look better. So I'm here. I'm looking at the Scraptastic Kit Club kit for November, which is, I got the Ain't No Sunshine kit. While I was doing that, I was just printing up a slightly lighter version. I just played around with the levels a teensy weensy bit just to brighten up her face a little bit. Her face was quite dark in the original one. And as I mentioned, there was too much contrast. The contrast in this one is more similar to the contrast in the yellow jersey photo from today. So here's something I don't do very often. I'm going to sketch out this layout before I do it. I never do this. Like, this might be the third time in my life I've ever done this. Especially right now. Like, I will sometimes write down sketch ideas when I'm not scrapbooking, and I never seem to go back to them, but I rarely do this. But here I am, and I just had this idea that I wanted to stack the photos and have some strips of paper behind and have it say then and now, just like this. And so that I don't, because I scrapbook in such a freestyle kind of a way, like I don't usually plan anything, I'm a little bit afraid that I'm going to forget that idea. So that's why I wanted to write it down on a piece of paper. I don't have the best art skills for sketching sketches, but it'll do me in a pinch. So here I am just looking for a background paper, and this beige Simple Stories one really stood out for me. I'm just going to grab the strip so I can tell you what it is. It's from I always forget the name of this collection, the We Are Family collection from Simple Stories. For a second there, I thought about using that yellow and white striped background paper. That's from Crepe Paper. I think it's from Crepe Paper. Anyhow, I'm not going to go very far down that line because it's too distracting. I also thought about using this as one of the strips, this Aztec-y, like iCat type of pattern on the back side of that other Crepe Paper. But I decided against it. So this is from My Mind's Eye? Yes, from My Mind's Eye, My Story. And that's the butterfly paper, and I'm going to end up taking a number of different papers from that collection and products from that collection for this layout. I'm grabbing that dark paper that's got like a damask type of a pattern on it because I'm going to use that for a mat. And then I really like this this floral. It's the perfect scale to balance off the large scale of the butterflies. When I did that, I accidentally cut that iCat pattern. It was laying on my trimmer. One of the dangers of laying papers on your trimmer is that they could get cut. And it was, so I didn't want to use it anyway, so it didn't really matter. But that mustard colored floral, I know some people seem to think it looks green. I'm sorry, that's probably my video. Anyhow, it is yellow. It's a mustard yellow color. And that is also from the My Story. Is it called My Story? Yes, My Story collection. So there I went and matted those two photos with that damask paper. The damask paper is from Authentique. And I love it. It's just subtle enough that it gives a nice bold matte, but it has this really subtle pattern that if you look closely, you'll see. So these are the My Story die cuts that came in the kit, and I am just picking out any ones that I think might be relevant either from a thematic perspective. So I'm talking about change and development and those sorts of things. I needed an ampersand, so I was really looking for an ampersand, and I did find one, although it's not going to work for the layout, and arrows and that sort of thing. And I'm also, so I'm looking thematically, but I'm also looking from a design perspective for shapes and colors that are going to go with I basically have a pink and yellow scheme going on here. So these stickers, I love a black foam letter sticker. These ones are called Fitzgerald, and I love them. They come in the kit. I love that they're skinny. And I like the W. I like that it's sort of very chunky. There's just tiny little, like the legs and feet of the W and the N are just tiny. Like there's a lot of foam in the middle parts of those letters. I can't find the words to describe the idea I'm trying to say there. Then I'm also going to come back to those Dear Lizzie letter stickers as well. They are called Desktop. And they're this beautiful puffy gold. They're puffy stickers. They're so nice. They're not all that sticky, but they're very, very nice. So that E had a little bit of the paint coming off of it right there. It's the only letter like that in the whole set. So I just switched it out for an E that was not discolored. I'm thinking about putting the word soccer over there. And I have that striped little flag that I want to use. And I'm thinking about maybe putting the title on a tag, but that's really throwing off the design of this one. I really wanted it to have that vertical look. And I want to have a pretty distinct visual triangle on this one. And that's just pulling it off. It's just not, it's pulling the balance off a little bit. So there, I'm going to take that tag right there. It says this story belongs to, and then it has a blank, and I'm going to put the word Sophie on it. And that's going to provide some balance because all of the elements on this layout are going to be way over here to the left. And so I'm going to put that tag up on the top right-hand corner to provide some balance. And I just used some wax paper to put out my letter stickers so that I could move them around on the page. And I'm just having a look at some of the elements that came with the kit. So these little acrylic pieces are really cute, and they're the perfect size for going either above or below my words at first. And then this one says just me. It's a die cut piece from the kit, and it's white, and I'm going to color it. And then this, oh my goodness, this diamond is perfect. It looks just like one of the diamonds in the net. I love it. I'm so happy about it. And it's wood veneer, and it came in the kit, and it's exclusive to the kit. So here I am just going through more of those My Story die cuts and just trying to pick out a couple of more. Now this arrow was too chunky and thick for the top of my layout. So I'm just going to follow the shape that the arrow already is and make it thinner. And so after I cut the side off on one side, I just flipped it horizontally and traced it sort of. I didn't really trace it. I just used my hands and cut around it. And that turns that chunky arrow into a skinny arrow that's going to balance a little bit better with the other side, because the other side has a skinny arrow down below the word now. I didn't want a big, if one of them was going to be big and chunky, it would have to be the one on the bottom from my perspective anyways. So since that one was going in the top, I wanted it to be chunkier. Now, what I haven't noticed yet is that my then photo is actually the now photo, and the now photo is the then. So eventually I'm going to catch that error. Don't worry, it will be before I glue everything down. Now these are word stickers, and I'm sorry that I forgot to zoom out before I showed this part of the process, but these are word stickers that came in the kit. They're really nice letter stickers from the My Story collection. Again, from my mind's eye, and I'm just putting them on the two acrylic pieces. The Celebrate You can see in there, I noticed that the pictures were wrong, so I'm changing them, which means I'm going to have to change my arrows a little bit because now I'm pointing to different parts of the photos. So I put Celebrate You above the word now, and then I put Remember above the word then. And you can't see that quite yet, but you'll see it in a second when I zoom out. I'm just going to grab a snapshot of that with my camera before I take everything apart. At this point, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, like I've got too many details going on and I can't keep track of where everything is going to be. So I snap a photo and I'm going to start gluing things down and outlining, and that way I can feel a little bit more on top of this layout. I don't like it when the layout feels like it's controlling me, so I'm a control freak and I want to decide what direction this layout goes. So I'm just looking for my 0.05 pen. It was hiding on my table, and I'm going to outline these papers. That will help them look a little bit more like they coordinate with one another, especially where there's only 2 pattern papers on this layout. I want them to look like they belong together. And even though they are from the same collection, and they certainly do belong together, it also gives some definition and finishes off the look. I almost always outline, not always, but almost always. And sometimes I outline around a layout like I am on this one, and sometimes I don't. The reason I'm doing it here is it sort of finishes off the layout for one thing, but even more so, this layout is going to have some bold black elements, both in the photo in terms of that high contrast black and white photo, but also in terms of the title, then, and the ampersand, and then now. And I didn't want the edges to look like they're sort of disappearing off the edge of the page. I wanted definition to kind of balance it off and contain the layout, and bringing some black, even just the thin little outlining lines is some black, and just pushes it right to the edge of the layout and just ties it all in. Oh, the other bold black element, of course, is the matting on those photos. So I'm going to put the word soccer below those arrows that I hand cut. They were from the die cut sets, but I customized both of them and cut them into the shapes that I wanted them to be, or the sizes that I wanted them to be. And I'm going to, now that the papers are all laid out, I feel a little bit more like I've got this, like I feel like, okay, now it's just time to embellish. I'm pulling out the Scraptastic stamp set that coordinates with this kit. And I'm just basically having a look around my table at what came in the kit and what else I might want to bring into this one. I want a lot of detail on this layout, and so, the other thing that I'm grabbing is the flare badge that says click, and it has a cute little camera. And I thought because it was a good photographic moment that I wanted to emphasize that by. Now here are my milk paints. I have a yellow, I have a lot of milk paints, but I'm going to use my yellow one. And I'm just adding some water. That's actually dirty paint water, but I didn't really care. You're not going to see that water was just very, 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 very slightly pink. Once you add the yellow pigment to it. So I just shake up my milk paints because they're very frustrating to stir. They don't blend very well unless if you shake them up. So I just keep these these are little containers that I bought from eBay that I use in the kids' lunches for putting dip for veggies and that sort of thing. And salad dressing, and I keep half of them in my scrap room and half of them in my kitchen, and then I can use them for mixing up colors on the fly. And the lid is pretty good at holding in the contents, like it doesn't leak, either in their lunches or when you're shaking up paint, so that's good. I'm just doing a second coat here just to make it even more pigmented. And this paint dries to they're called milk paint, so it does dry to kind of like a powdery, creamy, milky type of a finish. And I love how the Just Me, it's so totally looks handmade, because it is. Love it when it happens that way. And I'm just using my heat gun because milk paints are so watery that they do require some extra drying time. I'm drying the back of that because it's going to be sitting on my layout and I don't want it dribbling yellow paint everywhere. So that was my non-stick craft mat. The one that I have is by Prima. I actually won it from scrapbook.com a very long time ago on National Scrapbooking Day, probably 4 years ago. Now this is my Pebbles roller letter stamp. It has 12 different letters that you can spin around to customize a little phrase or word. And I'm spelling out the word Sophie, which I plan to stamp on that die cut, the pink die cut with the gold trim that says this story belongs to, because it belongs to Sophie. So there we go. Going to just hang that back up on my pegboard where I got it and stick that onto the Just Me die cut. Of course, it's just me, as in just me, Sophie, as if it were in her voice. It doesn't seem like it makes sense until I say that. I thought about stapling that, but then I decided I'm going to do some stitching on this. Like I said, I want lots of details on this layout, and so stitching is one of them. So I held off on stapling the Just Me in place, and I'm going to sew it instead. Now, when I place the photo, I need to be careful that I have enough room for the word then and the remember above it, that acrylic pink piece. And so I almost forgot that I planned to layer the then over the photo. And I don't need the letters to be perfect. especially with this font. This is a really casual, imperfect type of a font, so it tolerates some slight messiness, or probably a lot of messiness if that's the look you're going for. And I just use my Tombow Mono Multi adhesive. And this ampersand with the little diamond wood veneer behind it is missing something, and I'm going to think about that before I put it down. I feel like it needs a little something separating the ampersand, like the lines of the ampersand from the lines of the diamond. I had to space out the photo for, basically I also want the letters to overlap with the photo. Because I did it above, I want to do that again below. I just placed the O a little bit too low and then a little bit too high and then just right. There's the Goldilocks O. And then I put the N down, and that helps me place the little half circle acrylic chip. And I like how that looks. Still thinking about that ampersand. It's just not quite ready to be glued down. See, I'm thinking about it, but no, it's like there's too much going on. The lines of that diamond wood veneer and then the lines of the ampersand were just too much. So I could have put a little scrap of paper or something, but this washi tape came in the kit, and I do plan to use it elsewhere in the layout. So by using it here, it just ties it in when I use it later. I like to repeat different elements throughout my layout. You don't have to repeat every single thing, but I do like to repeat things in general on my layouts. So that gives a little bit of foreshadowing to the journaling that is to come. Not really, because you're going to take it all in at once, but in my process, it's a little bit thinking ahead, which I don't often do, but I did know that I planned to do my journaling on that washi tape. So now I have to think about how I'm going to do this. So first I decided to outline these little pieces. This was a tag that I cut the tag, like the part that had a hole and the square part off of it, and made it into basically kind of like a chevron-y type of an arrow that kind of mirrors the other chevron-y arrow that I'm also outlining. So if I outline one, I'm going to outline them both. And I like to outline things that are that black and white stripe because it contains the boldness of the black and white stripe. I just like it better. I have no real good reason other than liking it, which is a good enough reason. Oh, here we go. I'm over on my, see me wave there? I'm over here at my sewing machine. So I'm just sewing on both of the chevrons. That was my first idea. And I put just the tiniest amount of tape because I don't want to gum up my needle and thread. And then I felt like I needed a third place. So here we go. Remember how I didn't staple on that little embellishment cluster up in the top right hand corner? Well, here I am adding some sewing there instead. Now I'm cutting the dangly threads, but only on one side. I'm going to leave the threads dangling on the non-distracting side of each of those sewing areas. I'm putting some washi tape on the back because I didn't backstitch, and I'm always a little paranoid that my stitching is going to fall out when I don't backstitch. Sometimes my layouts get pretty handled between when I make them, when I take their photos, and then I kind of store them in a pile, and then I pull them out and do a review of the month video, and then I finally put them into their pages in my scrapbook. So I like to just make sure everything is secure. So then I just ran a bit of Tombow adhesive on the back, just not the liquid adhesive, just that tape runner right there that you just see me using on both of those arrows. So you see me now doing the second one. I just put the adhesive on the middle part of the arrow, and that way if I want to lift up the back or the front or both, I have that option. Time to stick down the word soccer. And these letter stickers don't stick all that well. The R ends up coming off a little bit later and I have to stick it down. But once you burnish it, burnishing is when sometimes it's not enough to just stick the sticker down. You have to really run your fingers over it. And sometimes it for some glues, it can activate the glue and help it to stick. So do make sure that you burnish your letter stickers once you're sure of where they're going to go, because that sometimes will keep you from having to re-glue, because, you know, thickers are pretty famous for not being all that sticky and for sometimes coming off. So here's the journaling, and I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to say here. So as I am pulling these strips of washi tape off and getting ready to design my journaling, I'm thinking about what I might be writing on these lines and how many lines I might need. So from a design perspective, those 4 lines look pretty good. So I'm thinking I will try to say about 4 lines worth of stuff. So I'm writing, from shy and nervous to a confident defender and striker, you've come a long way. And I was going to say you've come a long way, baby, but they hate it when I say that. They think I'm calling them a baby. They don't know that it's just a phrase. So I ran out of space, and plus, I don't think I would have put baby in there even if I didn't run out of space. So all along, I've had in the back of my mind that instead of splatter, or maybe in addition to splatter, I would use these vellum butterflies as a sprinkled looking random element on this layout to give it a little bit of whimsy. There are 2 reasons for this. And actually, I mean, it's part of the reason why I chose that butterfly paper that's in the back layer there that you can just see peeking out every here and there. It's because I like to use butterflies for layouts that talk about change or development, because the butterfly signifies, of course, change with its metamorphosis from a cocoon, from a caterpillar into a butterfly, and that sort of thing. So it's very symbolic. And for that reason, I like to use butterflies on these sorts of layouts. And I also like to use butterflies on layouts that involve, you know, freedom and flying and no limits and that sort of thing. But in this case, this is a layout all about change and development, so the butterfly seems appropriate to me. And so you saw that I just decided where I was going to place those butterflies, and then I took a picture. And I'm looking for a yellow mist in my mist samples, and I couldn't find one that was light enough except for the gold, which I do plan to use. Then I remembered, of course, I have some yellow paint that I used on another part of this layout. I painted the wood veneer and the Just Me die cut. So I just took my paintbrush and sprinkled a little bit of that yellow paint. Now, it's wet when it plops onto the page, so it looks quite dark, and it dries to quite a light creamy. So that is not going to look that dark once the layout is complete. I am going to dry it just because I'm going to sprinkle some more mists here, and I don't want my colors to mix. I want my yellow sprinkles to be yellow and to stay yellow and to not turn orange when they mix with the pink. Now, this Heidi Swap Gold looks almost exactly the same color right now when they're both wet, and the Heidi Swap Gold just dries almost instantly on pattern paper. It doesn't on cardstock, but on pattern paper it sucks right in and dries really quickly. Then this is Heidi Swap Primrose, just for a little bit of pink. I got a blob on that little card, but I'm not too worried about it. I just dried it so that I could try to make it not so bright, but it turned out staying bright, but that's okay. So you'll notice that even already those paint splots of yellow are quite a bit lighter than they were a few minutes ago. You can see them quite standing out as quite bright here on the video, and they're not bright, but they're definitely light, and they're a nice contrast to the gold, which at first I thought, why am I bothering with the gold that looks exactly the same as the yellow? But the yellow did dry and it looks quite different, and I love to have 3 different colors on a layout when I'm sprinkling. Usually I do 3. So now, there's that R that came off. And so now you just saw me stapling some butterflies in place, and whenever possible, I've stapled them onto other papers so that I don't have to staple in the middle of the page. But for this butterfly, I'm going to staple in the middle of the page. And I've shown this in a couple of other videos throughout the years, but they're so spread apart and they're always in the middle. So here I'm just slowing this part down to show you what to do. So this is my tiny attacher. It flips up like that, and then you open it like that, and then you put it back down. And that way you can use it without its backing. And I just use a thick piece of foam that some brads came on several years ago. I don't know if brads are still packaged that way, but the basic gray ones used to come with that foam. And I'm just going to position it so that, and now the most important part here is that you're very gentle. So you really only have to press what you think is halfway, and that's the right amount. If you're too enthusiastic and press too hard, you will rip your paper because that foam underneath will not support the weight of you pressing on it. So this is a We Are Memory Keepers brad tool. I do not use it for brads, but I use it for staples. So what happens when you staple without the backing on your stapler is you get these little pointy ends that poke straight out. I'm going to zoom in so that you can see them a little bit closer. And there they are, just sticking out. I've got my finger on one. And so I just place the brad tool like that, and I just rock it back and forth to make that little piece of staple bend. And then rock it again. And then I just kind of use the tool to press it down so that it's not sticking out. And there you go. The final step, just to make sure that nobody gets their little fingers cut on the sharp edges, because they don't point down the way that a staple would if you use the stapler properly, is just cover it up with a piece of washi tape. Then it also won't catch on anything when you go to slide it into your page protector. So here we are, back up to speed again. There we go. Oh, this layout, I love it. It's so pretty. I love the colors. This kit is one of my favorites. I know I say that every time, but it's true. It really is one of my favorites. Thought about stamping, and I'm going to actually hold off on that. There is a lot of detail on this already, but I want to add some brads. So I'm not going to use that brad tool that I just showed you because I find it easier to just poke a hole and stick it through. Yeah, that tool does have a hole poker on the other end of it, a paper piercer, I guess is the proper term for it. I'm just deciding where all of my brads are going to go. I want 3 of them on this page, but I'm actually going to end up putting 4. And that's all right. Not everything has to be in 3s. So there is a paper piercer on the other end of that brad tool that I just showed you, but I just find it easier to reach for this Amy Tangerine paper piercer that I keep in the foam piece that you see there that I just used for the stapler. And I'm going to, again, put washi tape on the backs of my brads just to help the page slip into the page protector more nicely. And I'm putting another brad right here beside this flare badge. And I'll add an enamel dot too right there, just for a little triangle of 3 circles. And now instead of the staple, I've changed my mind about this particular butterfly, and I'm going to use this brad as the center of the butterfly. And I just lifted up the wings a little bit. I really like how that looks. And I needed to bring a little bit of darkness to this top corner because so far it's too light. It needs something that's going to bring your eye there. And so this brad has a little touch of the dark color in the leaves of the flower, and I really like that. So there's some enamel dots I'm putting every here and there. And over here, I'm going to put one as well. And put 2 there, I guess. Oh, and one on there. Oh, that's a little bit of overkill, but I really like putting enamel dots on the edges of hearts on brads like that. I don't know, I can't resist. I didn't really need 3 enamel dots there, but oh well, they're there. Doesn't matter. I thought about putting another enamel dot down by the large butterfly with the brad in the center of it, but I changed my mind. That's what happened off camera there that you couldn't see. Now I'm just pulling out my roller date stamp and I'm putting October 2014, and I'm using my VersaFine black ink, and I just stamped the date down in the bottom corner of that photo, and then I just rolled it forward both the year and the month so that the other one says November 2015, and stamped it in the top corner of the other photo just because the other corner was covered. So here are the close-ups of this layout. I really love this one. It was fun to make. I love little fiddly details like painting things and making everything exactly perfect for the theme that I have in my mind. In this case, the theme is change, and also with the color scheme and the design and that sort of thing. I love playing around and taking my time with the layout. This layout took a little bit more than 2 hours to complete, which is about, I don't know, it used to be my average, but lately I've been making my layouts a little bit quicker. And because of that, I think I haven't focused as much on the details. And so this was really nice to kind of go back to focusing on those details like that. There's that top corner. So there are some photos that will follow, some close-up photos. So I hope that you guys have enjoyed watching this process video as much as I have enjoyed making it. If you are doing a then and now inspired layout, be sure to tag me in whatever social media you're on so that I can check it out. I love looking at these types of layouts. They're one of my favorite layouts to make and one of my favorite layouts to look at. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. I hope you have a really great scrappy week, and I hope that you get a chance to scrapbook a then and now themed layout sometime soon.